Hi, everyone. We are ready to get started again. And I will tell you, this next presentation is very near and dear to my heart. We have Jennifer Ramirez here, and she is our very first student presenter. And I couldn't be more proud of her. She was a previous student, and she is currently on our leadership board for the Early Childhood Education Club at UAGC. I am beyond thrilled to have her here. She has been a participant in this conference in the past. And like I said, she's a student. So I just really, truly am so proud of her and am glad that she is here. So I would like to formally introduce her. But before that, I just wanted to again tell you how spectacular this is going to be. So as I said, we are going to learn a little about parent involvement today, and we are going to learn about it from Jennifer Ramirez, who is the proud mother of 2 children, a daughter who's a freshman in high school and a son who is in middle school. She completed her associate's degree with an emphasis in child development and psychology while graduating with honors. She moved on to achieve her bachelor's degree in cognitive studies from the College of Education at Ashford University, where she graduated magna cum laude. She's 2 months away from completing her master's degree in early childhood education leadership from the University of Arizona Global Campus, and she holds a state NCLB paraprofessional license, a substitution license in the state of Illinois. She has been in the early childhood education field for over 17 years. During this time, she's worked in several different positions, from assistant teacher to an executive director and a curriculum and special events planner. Most recently, she has worked in the Child Care Assistance Program and the Child and Adult Food Care Program, while supporting programs such as Early Head Start and Head Start. And again, I am so honored and thankful. She is a very active member in our University of Arizona ECE Club. If you haven't checked that out yet, students here can check that out at UAGC Connect. Dr. Johnson, I believe, is here, and I'm sure she'll put something in the chat for those students who are here. And I do recognize several students' names. So without further ado, I am absolutely honored to welcome Jennifer Ramirez.
Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I want to start by getting to know you guys a little bit. So for those of you who are teaching early childhood education, can you just drop in the chat what age groups you're currently teaching? And if you're not teaching, what brings you here today? So while you guys go ahead and drop that in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and go over our agenda really quick. So just a quick look at our agenda. We're going to do a quick icebreaker. We're going to talk about parent involvement. And then we're going to have some time for questions. So our icebreaker is, I would like to know your definition of what parent involvement is. And when I give you guys a little bit of time to put that in the chat, I'm going to go back and see what age groups you guys are working with. We have 2s, 4 through 5, 5 through 6, toddlers, infants, first grade, full-time ECE student, 18 months to kindergarten, and a director, 6 weeks to preschool, 4 to 6. It looks like we have every age group represented today. Okay, so we have our first definition. Looks, parent involvement is the bond between home and school. That's a great definition. Thank you, Andrew. Parents who are eager to engage in activities that surround and support their children's learning. Parents who use their strength to support their children's learning at school. Working together with the family. Parent involvement can refer to the ways that we as educators engage and create opportunities for parents to have a role in school. Awesome. Well, you guys keep those definitions coming. Well, we look at what parent involvement is together. So I want to start with my definition of parent involvement, because as we saw from our icebreaker, we have quite a few different definitions. So my definition of parent involvement is the participation of a parent inside and outside of an early learning environment that supports the growth and development of a child. So I would like you to pay special attention to the words inside and outside, because to me, this is an important part of my definition. I have to remind myself, just because I don't see the interaction between the child and the parent doesn't mean that they're not involved. So I want to look at what that means. So parent involvement can take forms in many different ways. Classroom volunteering, attending school events, participating in classroom surveys. But there are ways parents can be involved in the growth and development of their child, and we may not even know they're doing it. So they're reiterating lessons at home. They're working with their children. So these are ways parents can be involved and we don't even know it. So I want to take a little deeper dive into the way parents can be involved and why it's important. So why is parent involvement important? I have a great quote for you guys from the Illinois Early Learning Development Standards that says, "Creating close partnerships with families is essential to ensure we are creating optimal learning experience for the success of the children." I love this quote. I think this is a great quote because having the children succeed is our goal. That's the parents' goal. It's everybody's goal. And it's great to remember that and to remember that the parents want the same thing as we do. So when it comes to parent involvement, everyone involved benefits. So I want to look at some of those benefits of an effective family partnership. Some of those benefits are increased knowledge of the child's living situation, because what's going on at home is going to affect the child in the classroom. And it's important for us to remember that. We'll have increased communication with families to learn this information so we know before time. We can support reinforcing classroom lessons. We can have the families support reinforcing those lessons. And we'll have aligned student goals. So the parents and ourselves as teachers will be on the same page. And there will be a smooth transition from home to school and vice versa. Have you ever been in a classroom and it's morning drop-off time and you have a child come in and their arms are wrapped around mom or dad's neck and they just don't want to come in, they're crying? That's a perfect example of a transition from home to school that's not smooth. Like, this is how this child is starting their day. Their day is going to be rough from there on out because of how it started. And we can eliminate that if we have that transition from home to school smooth. And we can do that by having a partnership with the families. Because when you have that partnership, the child can feel that cross collaboration, and school will no longer be just the place mom drops them off at. It will no longer be just somewhere that they can't be with mom or dad or any other family members. So we know parent involvement is important. Let's look at some of those long-term implications. So there is significant improvement in language and reading skills. There is a strong positive effect on student achievement. There are reduced discipline problems. So again, a strong partnership will allow parents to seek support for additional resources needed, as well as guidance from an educational and parenting support. So if you have a partnership with a parent and they're having a rough day, the child's having a rough day, they need some support, they're going to open up to you and they're going to say, you know, it's just been a bad day. He hasn't been sleeping all week. I don't know what to do. And you, as the expert in the field, can give them those guidance and that support, which if you don't have a relationship and you don't build that connection, that conversation isn't going to happen. And then the child's going to be upset all day in class because they're tired, but you won't know why, because you haven't been able to have that communication with the family or anyone who's dropped the children off at school. So we know parent involvement is important. And we know it has positive incomes for everyone involved, but there's still a lack of parent involvement. So I want to look at that a little bit. So why the lack of parent involvement? There can be many reasons for lack of parent involvement, some of which are negative experiences. I'm sure we've all had some encounter, some situation within our life where we walked away and was like, wow, I never want to do that again, right? Think if that situation happened where you were taking your child all day, every day. It can develop a lack of trust. Sometimes it's really hard for a parent, first-time parent who has a tiny infant, who has to hand them over to people they hardly know. It can be hard for them to trust that they're going to do what's best for their children, especially if you have a large classroom and there's a lot of kids in there. And parents may not know what to expect. I recently read an article titled "Understanding the Power of Parent Involvement" by Kirkwood. The author discusses the importance of parental involvement, but more importantly, he discusses why there is a lack of parent involvement in the classroom. So this leads me back to our icebreaker when I asked what your definition of parent involvement is. So we had some really good definitions rolling in, all of which basically have the same concept, right? Supporting the children, parents supporting the children. When Kirkwood asked 63 parents what their definition of involvement was, he received 9 different definitions. That's a lot of definitions. So let's think about that for a second. If I, as a teacher, have one definition of parent involvement, and you as a parent has a different definition, we both agree what's important, to be involved with the child. But if our definitions are different, are we really on the same page? I would say no, absolutely not. As a teacher, I could be looking at a parent and potentially mislabeling them as a parent that's not involved. And then as a parent, I could be thinking, how much more time does this teacher want from me? Like, I'm doing so much, I don't know what she wants. So there's going to be that disconnect. And that's pretty unfortunate, especially since you're both on the same exact page. You just don't have the same verbiage. So let's take a second to look at the parents who are just not disconnected by verbiage, but those that are just not involved by any definition. So why would some parents just not be involved? Parents have many different roles they have to try to juggle. So some of those roles are being a consumer. They have that financial burden of how much childcare costs, especially if you have multiple children in childcare. Plus you have the bills everyone without children have: rent, car, food, all those expenses. You have the parent as a nurturer. They're doing their best to make sure they are creating a warm, safe, happy environment for their children. You have parent just trying to be an adult, juggling relationships, family, friends, spouses. I remember when I was a first-time parent, I can't even count how many times someone said to me, I don't see you anymore. And I'm like, seriously? Come on over. I will hand you a child and you can see me. There is just so much to juggle. There's a lot. And when you try to keep up with family and friends, it becomes very stressful. A parent as a worker, they're an employee somewhere, right? And in most cases, that's the main reason they're in childcare. Work alone can be stressful, but let's go back to our previous slide when we said sometimes there's not that involvement because of the lack of trust. So now if you're already stressed about work and you're dropping your child off at a place that they're going to be there all day, you don't trust this place, how much more stress is being created on this parent between those two situations alone, regardless of everything else that's on this screen. You have the role as a community member. Parents are trying to be part of PTA. They're trying to volunteer at school, in the classroom. They're trying to go to church. They're trying to be involved in the community. And then one of the most important roles as a parent for the child is being an educator, right? We have to remember we're not the only ones who are teaching these kids. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whatever family member is there with them, they're teaching them many things, self-help skills, manners, how to walk, how to talk. They're also trying to reiterate all those lessons that we as teachers are trying to teach them on a daily, weekly basis. These are all things that parents are trying to juggle every day. Some parents have spouses and families to support them, and some parents are single parents with no one to lend a hand. So I ask you guys, where do we come in? Is it our job to take all of this into consideration at the beginning of the school year when we're introducing our requests and our expectations of parent involvement? I would say yes, absolutely. Because if we want parents to be involved, which we do, we need them to support their child's growth and development. We need them to reiterate their lessons, which means we have to take all these things into consideration because we want to set them up to succeed. So let's look at how we can do that. Here are a few ways we can encourage parent involvement. Number one, provide a clear definition of parent involvement. Next, support parents in learning different involvement strategies. So when I give my definition of parent involvement, I said that can take place in the classroom and that can take place out of the classroom. But just because it's taking place outside of the classroom, it doesn't mean I, as a teacher, am not going to be involved. It doesn't mean that I don't have to be involved. We can still support the parents in learning how to be involved outside of the classroom. So inside involvement, outside involvement. Work with parents to determine their preferred involvement method so you can further succeed. You can further support them so they can succeed, because that's the whole goal, right? Getting parents comfortable and involved and supporting them. And the easier we make that on parents, the more involvement we will have. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of myself, my children. They go to 2 different school districts, which means I have 2 of everything. 2 different school schedules, 2 different apps, 2 different websites. It's a lot to keep up with, juggling school and work and home and everything else. When they send me something and want me to sign up, I have the best intentions to absolutely sign up for this. And then I log on really quick, and then I'm like, oh, I got to create a username and I need a password. Oh, that password didn't work. Okay, I need a special character. And then 5 minutes later and 4 failed passwords, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this later. But how many times do I get back to it? But the ones that send me the link and they're like, here's your username, here's your password. I'm like, perfect. I love this. I'm on there. I'm navigating the website. I'm looking at what's on there, because in those 5 minutes for the other website that I spent trying to have a million different passwords, that by the time I was done, I wasn't going to remember what it was. Those 5 minutes I used on this website to look at everything that's on there. So we want to make sure we're making this easy, and the best way to ensure that is having the parents communicate to you what their preferred method of involvement is inside the classroom, outside the classroom, and then supporting them in that. So let's look a little bit of how we can further support them outside of the classroom. So I have some things here, but I want you guys to go ahead, throw some things in the chat while I talk about these. So involvement in the classroom, forgive me, involvement in the classroom. Some ways we can do that is have the parents come in and read books to the class. We can have them chaperone field trips. We can have a bring your parent to school day. What child wouldn't love to spend the whole day with their parent and their school? We can have holiday theme parties. We can have classroom parents, classroom mom, classroom dad, and we can have family nights. All of those things are really fun, great ideas to get the parents who are able to be involved in the classroom and being involved. So I see some things coming in the chat. We have teddy bear picnic, birthday reader, literacy night. Those are all really great ideas. Family traditions in the classroom. I like that one. That's a really good one. It lets us learn more about the children and the families, as well as having them be involved. So let's take a look at some methods of involvement outside of the classroom. So feel free to drop these in the chat too if you have some ideas of ways parents can be involved outside of the classroom. So some suggestions I have up here are communication apps. There's a lot of apps these days where you can communicate with parents. Social media is a good one. Everyone has a social media account. My suggestion is, if you go with social media, make sure you're having a private page and make sure you're having permission from the parents to post pictures of the children, because you always want to think about their privacy first. But both of those things are good ways to have that two-way communication with parents. You can post a picture with what little Johnny's doing, and mom can write back and say, oh, look at that, I didn't know he could do that, or he's been reading books all day or all week long by himself. Home visits, right? For all of you early Head Start teachers, home visits are great ways. You don't have to be early Head Start or Head Start to do a home visit. Anyone can say, hey, would it be okay for me to come do a visit and bring some, supplies, or bring some kits to show you fun ways of things you can do at home, ways to incorporate things into your daily life? Some parents may look at you like, I'm okay, thank you anyways. And some parents may be like, absolutely, yes, I would love it. So worksheets, depending on the age of the child, worksheets are always a good one. If you have those that are learning to write, you could send some of those home. The little ones where they can just color, Like anything where they can sit down and do together would be really helpful. Reading logs. I've been reading to my children since they were born. I love to read. I'm a huge advocate for reading. You can send them home a log and ask them to jot down what books they're reading. And then grocery shopping trips. I love grocery shopping trips with my children. Even now, as they're getting older, I still work on things with them when we're grocery shopping. So depending on the age of your child, this can vary on how you're going to approach this. But some of the things would be, when they were really little, I'd give them the list and I'd say, okay, I have pancakes. I put my pancake batter in the cart, and then I tell them it starts with a P. So they'd look down the list, they'd find the P, because they may not know how to spell or the whole word, but if they're starting to identify some letters, they can find that P pointed out, and they can say, and you can say, yep, that's it. And then they can start trying to cross it off. You can even go a little further if they're reading numbers. You pick up that pancake mix, put it in your cart and say, okay, how much is the pancake mix? They can read how much it is on the shelf. If they're learning to write, you can ask them to write it down. When they're learning to add, you can ask them to add it up. As my children got older, I have them get their own cart when there's things they want. They'll put it in there, you know, like they want a specific cereal or a specific blueberry waffles. Then they have to add it up. Now that they're in high school, I say, okay, now add tax. And they're like, really? I said, yeah, you want to make sure you have enough for tax. So they're trying to do their calculations of math and how much tax is. And then I'll give them cash so they could practice those skills of handing it to the cashier, using their manners, saying thank you, getting that change and that receipt and what that looks like and what that feels like. So in that shopping trip alone, you have math, you have writing, you have reading, you have self-help skills, you have multiplication or division, however you figure out your taxes, but there's a lot of things. Some suggestions we also have in the chat are backpack buddies. I'm not sure I know what that is, Catherine. I would love for you to share a little bit more about that. Creating a journal or photo album that travels between classroom and home. That's a great idea. Classroom newsletters, emails. I love it. Class blog, absolutely. Would a backpack buddy maybe be like a stuffed animal for the classroom that you can send home? When my son was little, if you kept your desk clean, you got Chester. Yes, thank you. You got Chester, which was a raccoon that you could take back and forth. And my son loved Chester, so he kept his desk so clean. If only he could keep his room that clean. So let's look at things, more ways we can do parent involvement. So one of them is bulletin boards. So, sorry. Going the wrong way here, getting you guys dizzy. There we go, bulletin boards. So bulletin boards are a great way to encourage parent involvement. These boards can be done electronically and sent out to parents, or they can be done like we did way back in the day when you had a giant bulletin board in your classroom and you were stapling up orders. This is an example of a bulletin board that I did around reading. Like I said, I love reading. So with this bulletin board, I have several things on here. I have a cute little saying by Dr. Seuss. I have a quick at-a-glance information on why reading is important. Cute pictures to draw your eye in and try to grab your attention. I have a goal down here in the bottom of reading 15 minutes a day. And then I have 2 reading lists. So the first reading list is what we're currently reading in the classroom. And then the second reading list is just suggested reading. So if you've read all the other ones, if your kids were like mine, you're going to read them 100 times. But if you can get them to move to a different book, there's a couple other suggested readings. Another suggestion for parent involvement is open house events. These are great ways to encourage parent involvement. So this is an example of a flyer I made to promote parent night. This flyer gives all the information the parent needs, which is important because we don't want them to see it, want to do it, but have to ask more information and then forget to do that follow-up, right? Because even though sometimes it's an easy follow-up, just remembering to do that follow-up can be difficult. So we have the date, we have the time, we have what to expect. And you can see this event is on a weekend and it's in the middle of the day. So I'm sure that the teachers may not be happy that they have to spend their weekend, but sometimes we have to meet the parents there, right? If all the parents are working Monday through Friday and they're picking their kids up super late in the evening, 6:30, many of them are not going to want to stay. They're just not going to have the energy. Their mind is focused on getting the kids home, getting them fed, ready for bed, and start the day all over again. So doing it on a Sunday, you know, they've had their Friday night to unwind, they've had their Saturday to relax, and then Sunday. So this may work for some, this may not work for others. There's never going to be a one size fits all. So you're going to have to really know your parents, get to learn what works for them, and follow suit to support them the best you can and meet them halfway. Other ways to support parent involvement is infographics. So I now love infographics. They are my new thing. And these are great because they're fully customizable and they can be used differently depending on what your preference is. So this particular one I created in reference to fostering language development, and I customized it into 2 different sections. And so the top half of this infographic is yearly developmental goals. So I'm showing you here the top half. So this is geared toward a preschool classroom. So it's 3 through 5-year-olds. So I have those milestones for every age group, for 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and 5-year-olds. And then the second section, I have more specific developmental goals that they can look at. And those can be anything you want, what you're working on in the classroom, whatever you want to add to here. So you could see first I have language development, and that gives you that word count that children at that age should be able to reach, how many sentences they should be able to say at that age, gives you some reading resources. So you can customize this however you want. Whatever you want to put up here, you can. And then the nice thing about these is they're very versatile, right? So I can take this one step further. I can turn this into a bookmarker, send it home to the parents to use with their nightly reading. Or I can think back to my 15 minutes a day request for parents to read, and I can make the back of it have a reading log. So now it's a bookmarker with the reading log, super easy. All you have to do is remember to put it in the book, and then when you're done reading, you flip it over, you jot down how much you read, what the book was, and you have it all in one place, so it's harder to lose. And then if you're not going to go with the whole bookmarker reading log, you can send these out electronically. You can send them as a PDF or a JPEG so the parents could take a picture and just save it on their phone. Or you can send them as a magnet for parents to hang up on the refrigerator. I like to put a lot of things on my refrigerator because I go in there multiple times a day. So I'm going to see it. It's right in my face. Then we also have our daily information sheets. So I'm sure anyone who has been in a classroom or who has had a child in a classroom are familiar with the daily reports. And so these sheets are useful for keeping parents involved, and inform. You know, they have what food they ate, how much of it they ate, did they nap, did they not, what did they work on, some comments you can put about their day. And then we have a different type of information sheet. So these are great for easily communicating information to parents about the general day, right? Especially right now with COVID, many parents are not able to go into the classroom. So a lot of them, for new parents, may not know what the classroom looks like or may not have overseen the day. So with something like this, you can put a classroom map, you see I have on the bottom, and I laid out like the little front door, where the sensory area is, the reading area. You can make your classroom, and then you can send it to parents so they know. So when you're saying, you know, he loves the sensory area on their daily sheet, they can look at this and see exactly where their child's spending all their time. And then I have information at the top that are things that are about the areas, or you can put just the general day, right? What's the daily schedule? So we begin with reading. Then we head over to the art center. We make sure we see the sensory area every day. And then lastly, we visit the math area to measure our height, or we use popsicle sticks. Whatever you want to add on here, you can add on here. You can do these with every theme. You can do these yearly, monthly, however often you rearrange your classroom. Whatever you'd like to do, you can do with these. They're very versatile as well. So one of the things I talked about is supporting parents, right? And one of the ways we can do that is with community resources. So they're very important to have handy for families. I always recommend having some printed out that are sitting on the counter. If you don't have a good relationship with families, they may not feel comfortable asking for additional resources from you. Some may be very old school and they think, well, this is where I bring my child to learn. Why would I ask them for resources for other areas of my life? So if you have the information out there, it's very helpful because again, we want to support the parents and being involved with the child and their growth and their development. And the more they have going on at home, the more stressed they are, the harder that's going to be. So this is an example of a resource I put together with some state resources. So on here, you can see there's 3 different information sections. So we have TANF, SNAP, WIC, medical card. So all of these are resources for parents that they can go to. I give a brief explanation of what that resource can do for them. And then I have on here where they can go, who they can call, the website they can go to, what the costs are, all of that information. It's at a glance, it's there for them. And then if this is something that I end up sending out, say in a newsletter, someone suggested newsletter, those websites are hyperlinked within here so they can easily access them too. Because if the parents are struggling with something as basic as money for food or healthcare, that's going to have a huge impact on their level of involvement in the child's overall health. And if their health isn't good, it's going to affect their development. And so we want to make sure we're providing resources where we can. So I want to do a quick recap for everyone. So we talked about parent involvement. So let's just do a quick recap on that. And the main one that I feel like I've said multiple times, and that's on purpose, is provide that clear definition of parent involvement. It is so, so important. If you don't take anything away from the past 40 minutes that I've been talking, please take away this one thing. Provide a clear definition of parent involvement. And it doesn't have to stop there. It can be anything that you're expecting from a parent or even a co-teacher. Have that clear definition of what you're expecting. This way you guys are on the same page from day one. My second recap for you is to work with parents to create a relationship in an effort to remove potential barriers. The more barriers you're removing, the better that relationship is going to be, the more they're going to trust you. When I had my very first classroom all by myself, it was a classroom of 2-year-olds. I still get updates periodically from a few of those kids in that classroom. One of them, which is just graduating high school. And it was so exciting, right? It was the very first time I had my own classroom. I was the lead teacher. So to see her graduating high school now, it's amazing how much you can do and with just, you know, your everyday work life, right? Because we have to remember, for parents have all those roles like we talked about. We have the work role and we have the educator role wrapped up into one. So we already have a little bit more than the parents do. Plus we have that education and that expertise, because having a classroom even for 1 year of 16 2-year-olds is completely different than having one 16 2-year-old. You get a lot of experience with those 16 kids. And then number 3, support parents with resources that will encourage their preferred method of involvement. And again, their preferred method is the key word there. You can't force what you want onto parents. It's not going to set them up for success. It's not going to help them succeed. We want to make sure we know what works for them and then incorporate those ideals and those ways to further support the development and the growth of their children and help them learn those ways as well. So that was a lot I said, I feel like. Is there any questions that anyone has? I would love to hear them, or any suggestions of stuff that I've gone over.